What evil lurks in the dark? A question we have all asked ourselves many times. Together, we can start uncovering the truth and mystery behind the darker side of the otherworldly. And now your host of See You in the Dark, Michelle Roos.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you for joining me again on this wonderful Tuesday evening. Last week, we started a little journey about religion versus spirituality. I went over some of the things. We looked at like the function, the context, practices, and beliefs. And it does separate everything. And then, of course, we were talking a little more about how I went down the rabbit hole because we were looking at the word religion, but we weren't looking at what was kind of around that word. Because I had my opinions of some of the things, again, we were looking at the function of religion, as it's directed at a wider set of goals than spirituality, which focuses finding a sacred destination. We also talk about, the social and physical functions of religion, where more the spirituality is finding the meaning and purpose in life. And then kind of going back and forth. I was still kind of torn because I think both can coincide with each other, but really can they? Or are we just putting it out there to the sense of we have to keep it separate? Because, can a person who studies religion or practices religion have that spiritual side where it connects them higher to their God? We talk about the context of it, the establishments, the institution where, spirituality can be part of traditional religious life, but it also can be expressed as non traditional. We look at different practices, like rituals, sermons, festivals. But then we also look at the spirituality side, which they also practice spiritual exercise activities, but they do it in a different sense to get a different outcome. We talk about religion as a belief. Spirituality always looks for more of the divine, where when we talk religious, they talk to just one God. Now, again, we don't know what that divine is to a lot of those people, and we don't know how the religion kind of forms back and forth with them. We talk about religion having a community, a group where they all come together and they share that spirituality with themselves. So, but then again, when we're talking about spirituality, it's always saying that it's done on its own, where you're finding your inner peace. I started having this conversation a little bit with my next guest, and there was some great discussion back and forth of opinions, beliefs, and things like that. And I thought, you know what? Why don't we get a different perspective? Someone who has done part of the religious side, but has been growing more in the spiritual side and has made a different journey, have the two come together for my guest? Or is this something that stays completely separate? So, as we start discussing some of this, I would like to bring in my special guest, Cindy Brown.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Cindy. Thank you for being on the show tonight. Um, it's been really interesting because I know we've had numerous conversations about this, uh, of the different sides, different opinions, different perspectives. And, I kind of just went over some of the things that they make sure that it stays completely separate. But in my mind, I kind of can see, but love to hear what is your perspective, your opinion on the whole, deal of religion versus spirituality. Because I've noticed it's kind of been a little bit of a talk, especially around social media. And of course, a good friend of ours, Tom Springer, had made the comment that he has also had this discussion with people. But it's something that's out there. So, just to give a couple minutes, tell people who you are, what you do, and then let's get started and see what we can come up with tonight.
So I started to, well, I have a touch of the spiritual side. Since I'm pretty young, I believe I was exposed to it at a young age. And then education went on. I went to school and I studied actually religion in school. And so the more I studied it and I looked into and learned more about those different religions, um, I've noticed that mm, something, I don't know, just doesn't. Yes, I don't know. I can't really, I don't know how to explain it, but it just felt, well, confusing to me, I should say, all those different religions. So, and throughout my years later on, I started to discovering more the spiritual side or the spirituality. So the religion part for my personal life journey went completely in the background. And that's when I started to lately, when I heard more about the religious side and the spiritual side kind of work together. I'm kind of like, I still can't figure out, for me personally, I just can't figure out how religion and spirituality kind of work together. But that's very based on my experiences and based on what I learned when I studied religion in school. So it's still for me two different parts. And since I now tap more into the spiritual side, it becomes clear that I personally identify more with the spiritual side than the religious side.
Now, when you studied all this religion, this was when we can let people know because you grew up in Germany, correct?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
that's where you were learning a part of those religious type of things that was more. And do you feel, because you've been in the States for a little bit, that when they were teaching religion like over in Europe, do they teach it kind of like they do here with that strong hand or using it as a weapon? Or is it more open over there where if you have that spiritual side, if you're really connected to God, that it is also a thing? Or is it really strict?
I would almost say in Europe it's strict. It's pretty strict when it comes to religion, especially since we have a lot of Christianity and Catholics in Europe, especially in Germany. That's the side I got mostly exposed to it.
Mhm.
And Germany, well, I can only speak mostly for Germany. It seems like everything is religion based, like traditions and things like that. Like it's well, Sundays going to church or such things as for Christmas. Let's take that as an example. Sundays you went to church and had, your Christmas little what you call it, gathering, what they had. I went there with
Mhm.
my great grandma when she was alive, and that was a actually Christmas tradition. And so I did grew up with having some touch of the religious side, but I can say my parents actually raised me non-religious. I was not raised in any religion or any strict religion, so I always had the freedom of like was not like guided or like like
Mhm.
how should I say that,
You
like
weren't forced into it or anything like that. It
yes.
wasn't used as a weapon towards you.
Exactly. It was always like I could choose for myself, and I could freely choose whatever I wanted because my parents never had forced me into any religion. I was pretty much free to explore whatever fits best for me.
So, as you were kind of learning this religious side and everything, at what point did you feel like, okay, this is not the path? I'm not getting the fulfillment that I'm looking for, that it became, really relevant for you to open your eyes more to start going down a different path to finding yourself?
I think what happened to me was I think I discovered it more in my teenage years when I was a little bit like I always liked the the more open exploring and finding myself and not being forced into a certain um box, I should say, or like a certain you know
Mhm.
like I always were open, like, okay, I mean, it maybe sounds a little strange, and but I'd be pretty honest. When I was younger, I was sitting at a cemetery just enjoying the peace and thinking about things. And I was always a very open person to what is out there. And I think I was always more drawn to the spiritual side. And I think the religious side was never really in focus for me. But later, when I started to study more about it, but then I discovered more about the religious side.
Yeah, and I know when we've had conversation, is it something with the word religion that kind of steer people away? Because more people have kind of been looking into this because, that there are some people that, will, God is their God, but they do it with their full spirit. Is it something with the word religion and how it is put in a box that you think steer people away? Or is it because they're saying you only have one God?
And this is an
What is your
interesting
thoughts?
question.
It is,
Um,
isn't it? It kinda
yes.
throws me. I know, and that's why I said we've talked about it because when we say the word spirituality,
Mhm,
everybody runs and jumps on board because it is kind of looking the inner self of yourself, which you have been going through this awakening of finding a different place for your path.
mhm.
So, when we use that word, it seems like everybody jumps onto that. But when we use the word church, religion, Bible, it's like people run backwards. Do you think they're I mean, are we misrepresenting something? Can they both work together? I mean, what is your opinion on that?
I'm personally not saying they are not connected to each other.
Okay.
Um, I I'm personally I haven't I I don't I should say I'm not too I saw always religion and spirituality as two different points.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I have never seen that in connection because the way I experience religion for myself lately,
Yeah.
I can't unfortunately. It okay. Spirituality for me personally is like having empathy, having you understand energies, you understand other people, you understand other people's emotions, and you give everyone free space to be who they want to be, and you don't judge, and um you don't disrespect anyone by their beliefs. You let
Uh-huh.
everyone believe who whatever they want to believe, and that's how I see it. But for me personally, religion has become more this, well, you have to believe in our God, or you have to follow our religion, or other than that you are not a good person, I should say. That's pretty much how it is represented today, which is not really true. I don't see that as true. So I don't understand, from my perspective, how spirituality and religion comes together. But of course, I'm not saying it's not connected. I have just seen a different side of both, where for me personally I don't see a connection, but I'm not saying it can't be connected. I mean, there's always space for learning new things, and just what I know. Um, may not, it's probably not everything I know, and there's so much more out there.
Well, yeah, and like I said, when we talk about it, I think sometimes because of things being man-written or rewritten, let me put it that way, we had talked about the Bible itself, people read it and use it as a weapon, but in actuality, it's a story. But at the same
Mhm.
time, you know, when we are supposed to be talking to God, Jesus, who are, we are supposed to be speaking to him in our spiritual side. So, we kept going back and forth because, I mean, there's a lot of people when you talk religion, hate other people and do all that. But I've also seen it with people who are very spiritual. Some of them have huge egos. Well, guess what? So does a lot of churches. There's big egos. Who's giving the most money? Who's wearing the best clothes? So are both sides, I mean, your opinion, do you think both sides have lost what they're really supposed to be because man has changed it to become almost like a social media type of thing?
I I can see this, yes. Simply because the world has changed so drastically and so dramatically that everything has to. Yes, I can actually see that because everything. How should I say that?
You can
um,
say it as truthfully as you want, honey.
um, yes, I think there has been this separation by this world that we live in today. I
Uh,
think religion has been made this what we see on a daily basis, kind of like, which is not the friendly and nice side. I mean, for
yeah.
me personally, what I experienced. But then the spiritual side, I always see spiritual people with having, like I said, empathy and understanding for other people. But then at the same time, is it really made in this world today? And is there really, like, there are spiritual people who are religious? And I believe, yes,
Yeah.
most likely, yes, absolutely.
Now, you actually follow really on the spiritual side, and you actually have a goddess that you follow, correct?
Yes, I do. Sorry,
Go ahead.
I do follow Hecate,
Uh-huh.
as she resonates a lot with me and who I am as a person and who I identify as.
Okay.
Um,
And
so
so, could you explain a little bit to people if they don't understand, because of it being more of the spiritual side, of how that calling came to you? Because, it's not something you grew up with. It wasn't like when we grew up, you go to, like you said, Sunday church and all this, and it's just part of your life. How did that awakening for you, how did that become something for you?
so like I said, I was like, when I started religion, I felt somehow I was finding my true calling. I was like, just let me guide myself, not actually committing to anything, no religion, no nothing. I was just open to see where it draws me. And then I discovered the the empathy and the gift that I have, and that drew me more into the old belief system, and I started to look more into, since I'm from Europe, especially Germany. We had those old traditions such as spring equinox and all those fires and traditions that we did. And I looked more into this and I enjoyed doing that. And then I looked into the old Celtics and Norse, and I started to be drawn to those older folklores and mythologies, and with also with the spiritual side, because I started to found out that I have gifts, that I'm an empath, and that I do connect to those beings on the other side beside religion. And but I was still confused of how does that work together. And then I just, like I said, it was a confusing time because there was some type of religious draw, but then it was not because I couldn't identify with it. And one, I looked into the Norse, that didn't sit quite right because there were some differences. And then I felt this really draw to Hecate. And that was more a personal draw to, because she represents a little bit of who I am. I'm a very strong person, but I'm also caring, and but I also believe in standing for women and encouraging women to be those strong, beautiful um, beings that they are, and that's what Hecate stands for. She tells you you have to be like pretty strong, but
Yeah.
also have this, like empathy for people, and also be an encourager for women. Because in today's world, I also believe that women lost a little bit their strength, like, their belief that we are actually good. Um, how should I say that?
Well, and, again, this is something that, we talk about, you know, it's at certain levels, like we were talking, certain religions hold back, women or don't praise women. But we got to remember too, because we say that about, certain religions. But, if you look at some of those, like Mary was put on a very high chart because of being the mother of Jesus. But Akate
Mhm,
does it more in a full fold. So when we're talking spirituality, the feminine side of goddesses were considered on the same level, if not higher than some of the gods. And I
mhm.
think that's where people kind of get intertwined, you know. And again, they don't realize some of these goddesses, if you do them wrong, there is a
Yes.
wrath that you're going to have to
Oh,
take.
yes.
So, and and again, like I said, I go on the both sides
Mhm,
because, my thing is we have to have both sides of it because it's one of those
mhm,
that a lot of people don't realize that when you're looking at Efekate, when she worked with, others, actually worked with archangels. And so
mhm,
that's why I went down the rabbit hole because I'm
mhm.
like,
Yes.
okay, wait a minute. If you have a goddess that can work with archangels and also could go down and have the light to go down into the depths of hell to help people guide them out of that darkness,
Yes.
where did we change the two? And that's why me and you were
Mm.
talking about it because we're like, okay, wait a minute here, because it's like this goes back, longer than anybody's been around, but yet we kind of forget it because the religious side cuts that piece out. The spirituality piece of it gets cut out. So it's been kind of like, okay, what are we even talking about? It's kind of like if they work together once, why is
Mm.
it that we are not working together as of now? Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And how is it now divided if they were able to work together, but and that's, I think, when modern religion kind of just cut those
Yeah.
in pieces, and that's what get a lot of people get exposed to this cut.
Yes.
There is a cut, and that's what. Well, that even makes sense to me now. And I have to admit, I'm always still learning new things
You
every
know
day,
what? I'm
and
gonna I'm gonna let you really ponder on that real quick. We're gonna take a short break and we'll come back and continue this discussion.
The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com. We are a few weeks away from the 2024 XCon in Springfield, Missouri, and you still have time to get tickets and join us for 2 nights and 3 days of speakers, workshops, paranormal investigations, vendors, and dance the night away at the Mad Hatter's Ball and Banquet. Be sure to bring your favorite Halloween costume for the ball and enter to win the costume contest. Come celebrate our 3rd year birthday and engage with amazing presenters like Tyler Kiwala, Micah Hanks, Dan Terry, Michelle Roos, and so many more, including keynote speaker Scott Nelson on the Ron Moorhead Bigfoot recordings, October the 11th through the 13th at the beautifully haunted Oasis Hotel and Event Center in Springfield, Missouri. Go to unexnetwork.com for tickets and details. That's unexnetwork.com.
Welcome back, everyone. And you guys seen it, just about almost a week away for an amazing event in Springfield. I was able to join last year. It was great. Had some great speakers. Actually, I was more in awe than I think anybody else of learning of all the other things out there. And that's what's really great. And that kind of brings us back to what we're talking about. There is so much out there that's unexplainable, different ways of people traveling to find out the answers, whether it's in yourself, whether it's following a certain community, or just being more on that side of the scientific side area only, but with an open mind. And that actually comes right back to what we're talking about. We're here with Sindy Brown, and we are talking about the religion and versus spirituality. So let's bring Sindy back on and let's continue our chat. See if by the end of the show that we'll get more aha moments. When we stopped, we were talking about Sindy actually is on that spiritual side. She has her goddess Akate, which a lot of people automatically think is like a demon, which she's not. She can be mean like one if you cross her, but she also helps both sides. When you're talking about a balance, Akate represents that. That is why, she has her torch so she can walk into the depths of hell if she needs to, but she also walks the other side, which is the light. Now, when, different things come on, and this is where, Sindy, we were talking, you know, she's
Yes.
not like in the Bible or anything like that, but when we talk about gods and goddesses, when they were around, they also, if you made them mad, they hated humanity. They
Yes.
hated them, just like a lot of the angels hated humanity because they felt God loved us more than them. Well, the same with the gods and goddesses. because they didn't have it. So it's kind of like the same stories, but different characters. So is this something that we, because I do both. I have
Hmm.
my beliefs, you have your beliefs.
Yes.
Is that at this point, when we start, remember we were talking as we were talking about gods and goddesses, and when you're talking about Zeus, if you ticked him off, there was a right.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
And it's just like in the Bible, if you're not doing something that God doesn't like, well, guess what? He's going to come down on you. So, are we building characters to make our brains figure out what these are? But are they really the same? And we're all coming from different directions, but we end up being in the same spot. Is Zeus really a god, or is God a god? Or are we at a higher power and we're all like have no clue what we're doing?
um, well, I believe, well, personally, we have the strength of manifesting, and I believe we well, there is not a lot written about those old gods and goddesses. Everything we have, like, I remember we having also this conversation where we talked about that everything is now new written, and there is not so much known about back in the day, like before religion even existed, or or when religion started to develop, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like we don't know exactly um we it's again, I'm sorry, it's difficult to explain.
It's mind blowing. It is hard to explain
Yes.
because everything has been rewritten and redone by scholars who have used it to so-called educate people. And is it because, and here's a question I'd like to know, is it
Mhm,
because we have not used our full potential? We have not let our spirit open up enough to really search what we're searching for, like they call us seekers, people looking for that
mhm.
peace. And because we are so trained, is that
Mhm.
maybe why we're just going by what we see written in books and papers?
I do believe that, um, because you can let there are, well, like, there is the saying the universe actually speaks to us, and there is also spirits, and everything kind of communicates through energies. And I think and I can personally describe that as in my personal experience between being so head focused versus letting my intuition and my senses guide me. There is such a huge difference, and I believe that is also making a difference in today's world, because everything wants to be explained by the minds and not just felt and let it guide it with an open mind. And I think that also plays a big role. Mhm.
Well, and I have to agree because I think I've said it on the show before. I think us as who we are, we have, we were born, we grew up learning how to walk, talk, we go to school, we become adults, we go to work, we pay the bills, and we just kind of go in a cycle. And if you look at it, it's all very robotic. It's like,
Mhm. Yes.
this is what we're doing. But it almost feels like we're in a spiritual prison because everything is told to us how we should be doing things.
Yes. Unfortunately. And that's where you block. Yeah, I believe since we are taught not to, we need to stay in line. That a lot of people, I believe, not. I'm a very open person, and I do, I explore things. I tap into I want to know more, and I let it guide me. And that's true because we are so trained to follow a certain line, and that becomes your senses kind of blocked from that. That's how I see it personally. And people
So
may also, I'm sorry to
no,
jump
go
in, but
ahead. Go ahead.
people may also, if they open their minds and let their feelings guide them, or their like abilities, because we all do have abilities. I think some people are also scared of what they discover, so that they may stay in their, where they feel comfortable, because if you discover this other world, um, that's what I personally also think. Like,
No, and that kind of makes sense because I feel like we we just kind of walk with blinders on. And, like I said, when we were talking about what, kind of what the functionality and stuff is of like religion and all that, it has a context, it's got a practice, it's got a belief, it's
mhm,
got structure, and so, but when we're supposed to be talking, whether you're talking to your gods and goddesses or we're talking to, God, Jesus, Mary, whoever we talk to, we're supposed to be talking on our spiritual side with them, not
mhm.
just verbiage that comes out of our mouth. And, so at this point, is it the words that is keeping everything separated, or has those words been set in our mind so strongly that we separate them both because of that? What are your thoughts?
I That's a good
Yeah.
question. This is a very good
These are
question.
questions I ask myself,
Yes,
because I'm like, I don't know.
um, it's pretty. This is a pretty interesting. What I again, I only can speak from my personal experiences, and I sense that sometimes people say things but have no feelings behind it. It's a
Yeah.
really strange way to explain it, because there is a feeling to it that if someone says something without any meaning behind, or without any emotions behind it, versus if someone says something and it really has an emotion kind of attached to it, there is a difference. And I believe what I've noticed also is that a lot of people lately just say things, but there is no emotions attached to it. It's like just empty words, as you want it. Like, that's what I experienced. And that's why I think this world has become so divided when it comes to religion and spirituality, because I believe emotions and words, you know, yes, and there we have it again. I think religion and spirituality does work together, because you have emotions and you have words, and that becomes all ones, like all, yeah.
Oh, Cindy, am I turning you? Oh, girl. No, and again, people have discussions and or arguments over this, but are we coming from it from a different perspective of are we just
Mhm,
coming from it with the words instead of what really is behind it? Because when we put the word religion, it puts it straight structure, it puts it that, you're emphasizing, you're attending church, you're doing certain rituals, like you said, the Christmas stuff and all that.
mhm.
And then, of course, when we talk about the spiritual side, they say it's a personal connection to the divine. So my
Yeah.
question is, Jesus could be the divine, and if you're actually emphasizing that inner understanding, that personal connection, because you're supposed to have a personal connection with him also. So
Hmm.
why is it that we're struggling to figure out, is this really that big of a mystery? Are you in
Hmm.
awe too? Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
that's what I'm
Yes.
saying. Because we don't, there is no real there's no real definition for divine, who that divine is. I think the divine is whoever we go. Your divine and all that could is Akate, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Okay. I also follow agate, but I also follow it on parts of the biblical side. So you just mainly her, but I do both together. Again,
Yes,
that divine,
that's
aren't we supposed to be on a spiritual side with no matter what path we follow? Do you know?
that's I mean, yes, I think the spiritual, I mean, if we use the spiritual path, it doesn't matter in what direction we travel because we all come from the same base. We all come from that spiritual. But I think, and then there is this dividing by religion, you can do, I think there is, hmm, oh my God. Oh, well, yes. That's,
Do you see where I'm coming from, though? What I mean is how it kinda gets in your mind, and now you're going deeper because 'cause you're trying to figure out, has this been manipulated
mhm,
to, again, control masses? Because here's the thing, I have seen stuff on the spirituality side where it's also a moneymaker. It's
mhm,
also, let us join our class, pay this much money, and we're gonna teach you how to meditate. Well,
yeah,
okay. It's also a moneymaker in the religion side. So,
that makes sense,
are
yes.
we just, again, now putting ourselves in the same situation we have been since the day of birth, and we truly are not finding ourselves? Are we still
Just,
being controlled?
yeah, just getting pulled into the other direction instead of religion, just getting, yes. Hmm.
And again, now like for yourself, which I can tell all the listeners, I do know Cindy. And so when Cindy says she's open and she's very spiritual and finding her own path, she is doing that direction. She is not one of those who pay all this money for all these online classes to find herself. This has been a journey that she's still going through. So, again, I'm kind of blowing her mind now, but we do that when we're talking.
Yes. Yes, it's very it's so complex because we had when we had the discussion, it's like you try to understand it with out of your with your thinking mind, and it doesn't make any sense. It's confusing. It's such a huge, and then you have more questions, and then you try to find more answers, but then it's again, then you stand again in this direction of where am I going, or where does this go, or where is this going, or it's confusing. How does this even work together? But now I start to understand, if it comes from a spirituality side or spiritual side, that this, yes, yes. But
No, and
I,
I'm right there with you. I really am. I find some flaws in both of them. Well, I find
mhm,
a lot of flaws in both of them, you know. But at the same time, I can be right with you. Do they need to stay separate? Do people need to be divided again? Because
mm,
again, now we're dividing people on their beliefs yet again. Or is this something the reason people are having this conversation is maybe this is our eye opener of being as one?
yeah. Mm,
Mm,
but
yeah.
I also look into the religious and into the different religion and itself. And if I look into like Christianity, Catholics, um, Islam, all those religions, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's also, these religions say, oh, you have to believe in my God, or, in even between those religions are so many fights because it's not it's not accepted. Like, let's say you are not, what I personal again, my personal experiences is like, if you are not religious, you're godless. Um, but this is so not true, because who says just because I'm not religious doesn't per se mean I'm not having a god or a goddess. Um, but this is again where I think people turn that into this control. I don't think it may not even religion and spiritual side does not even have to be divided. But then you said, does it become divided again because of people? And on,
Yeah.
uh,
It's
I have to
hard
be
to do
honest,
this
it's
show
tricky.
without using cuss words, I'm telling you, because sometimes that's where our umps come in. And I will tell people when we do speak about this a lot of times, myself and Cindy will have some choice words that come through. And so we're both trying really hard not to drop any bad words. But sometimes, you kind of get heated, not really heated, but you're
Mm,
so flustered because it's like, we talk about how religion was used, so long ago to control masses. Well, guess what? The spirituality side back in those days was also used to control masses.
yes.
So, we're constantly going and walking that line, like how they say they got the line in the sand, but it's walking both ways. And we all come to what we believe is our God. Everybody has a different belief, just like I think everybody's heaven is different. We all have our own heaven. I don't think it's one big hole up there and we're just all hanging out going, "What's up?"
Yeah,
But
yes.
you know? And if you're a spiritual person and you believe in just like, the religious people, afterlife, are
Hmm.
you now in a separate place where no one will ever see you again because you're more on the spiritual path? I mean, if you really break it down, where do we all go? Do we still have that split in the sand, or are we all going to end up together going, "Oh my gosh, we have all been talking to the same God
Yeah,
in different
yeah.
ways?"
And this is interesting because well, so I kind of see this a little bit as, how do I put that in words? Energies. Okay, let's let's take it in form of energies. Okay, we have
Okay.
good energies, we have bad energies, and we have the middle. So we all fluctuate one way or another. Some people have, like, their pure energies is good, and some people's pure energies, different, not so good. But I see this also, like, again, in my belief, I we all go towards the light.
Yes.
That's again, that's my, how does that religion uses heaven and hell, okay, or they're kind of good and bad. Again, we have, this is how I see it.
Uh-huh.
And but how do you separate good and bad? What is good in one religion, or one religion that works with one God? What is, the this is where it really becomes confused, and very confusing, because you don't know how. And this is
Well,
where,
it is because you think about it, if we're all going towards that light, then we get to a crossroad and I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, see you later, Cindy, because you went that path, I'm going that path." Because if you think
yeah.
about it, you see, just like they talk about, be changed by the grace of Jesus Christ, surrendered and obedient to the Spirit, right? Living accordingly to the Spirit.
Yeah.
But in actuality, when you're following a god or goddess, you also have to surrender yourself and be obedient and
Hmm.
live by that spirit. So is it because the word Jesus Christ is being used and so now it's taboo because we're not using a name like Agate or, Freya or anybody? I mean, think about it. They have the same rules.
Hmm. Yes, yes. I mean, for me, it's Hecate, and
Yeah.
of course, I have to, because if you, like, get on her, well, darker bad side,
Yeah.
I mean, she is, well, and that's like, yes, if you do something wrong, you will be punished, and this is how life is. And yes, okay, yeah.
See, this is a conversation I think can go on because there are good arguments on both sides of which way. But then it makes you wonder, if there's arguments with it. Are we just that blinded that we didn't realize we're all going down the exact same path? We're just taking different roads?
Yes, it's
And it doesn't mean I'm not spiritual. I will tell you, I am more spiritual than a lot of people. You know what I mean? And I
yeah.
bring both in, and I will definitely tell you that. But at the same time, is it because when I was awakening, I got to the point I didn't let words separate which way I go?
Hmm.
Because that was my awakening. Hey, stop. This is an
Hmm.
open field. Run free. Find you. Is that something people need to start doing to find out who, what, where, and how?
Um, I think so because something similar actually happened to me. Huh. Well, I never thought about that from that perspective. But yes, there's
I
because
know.
you try to, I think through my life and how then certain things happen, but then you forget certain things, of course, because you fall into this, you get adjusted to this new stage that you were in. And now I'm thinking about it. Well, when I hit rock bottom, I literally lost, everything I worked for, and I lost my identity. And that's when my spirituality or my spiritual side really started to come out. And that's because I let everything go. I did not look into, oh, what do I have to do? Or what does life want me to do? Or what does society want me to do? I just freed me of everything. I just let everything go and see where it took me. And because it's interesting how I started to be free when you were younger, because you were not um forced, or you were young, you still had your free mind. Then education came, school, work, and then you fall into this daily routine that you have to follow in. But then there was this time where my life kind of fell apart, and I bought back into kind of those childhood years kind of feel, and that's when this draw started.
And
and
see, that
and
that makes a lot of sense. That
and I
makes
did not look into any what does certain parts or certain groups of people want me to do, or I just, yes, I mean,
well,
maybe
so
that's.
that could be the thing. Maybe we are supposed to look at both religion and spirituality with kids' minds. Be
Hmm.
open to what comes at you and know stranger danger or this is the right thing. It could be a thing. It really could. Um, Before we leave tonight, Cindy, I did want to talk. We actually have a calendar out there. It is on social media and some different platforms. It's the Haunted Heroines Women of the Beyond calendar. This calendar is actually to spread awareness and help support Stop Soldier Suicide. Now, 100% of all the proceeds when buying one of these will actually go to that cause. The great thing about it, and Cindy, you know Mr. Jeff Fent himself, and he's been a guest on my show, makes
Hmm.
these
Yes.
amazing ghost boxes from wood from different haunted locations. And he actually has put one together with the ribbon and everything else. So the first 100 people who purchase a calendar will be put in a drawing to win this box. And if you don't know about Jeff Fence boxes, go to his Facebook page. You're going to see the craftsmanship of all of this. And again, this is a calendar that I was so humbled to be part of. We have some amazing women on there, and it goes for an amazing cause. It's for our veterans in need, and we want to make sure that we bring enough of the proceeds there so this way they can all get the help that they well deserve. And also to remind everybody, don't forget to go over to get your tickets for the XCon, which is the 11th through the 13th in Springfield, Missouri. I will be there. I want to meet a lot of you. So please, if you come up to the table, let me know if you're listening to the show, what you like about it, what you don't like, what you would love to hear. And Cindy, I want to thank you personally for jumping on here and listening to my ramblings like you always do, but also giving your perspective of it, you know. And again, I wasn't trying to change you. I was just kind of
No,
throwing it out because bouncing off of you and some of the things you say kind of help everything. So, Cindy, thank you so much for being on with us tonight.
thank
And
you so
to
much for having me.
every and to everyone that has been listening, again, yeah, these are opinions, perspectives of all of us. If you have, you know, different perspectives of what we were speaking about tonight, please don't hesitate to put any comments in the chat. Get a hold of me on Facebook. I would love to have that conversation. Next week, we're going to have the infamous Demon House, the infield house, and the owners of talking about some of the really crazy things that have happened there, which will be great starting our spooky season. And again, thank you everyone who's been listening and who follows us. I'm sending you love and light. Until next time, I will see you in the dark.